in order to really help people, you have to be able to know what they need. And they don't need someone just living through their sympathy. In order to really help them with the empathy, sure, you want to be able to connect and feel, but you want to be able to take them out of themselves and practice this skill by taking care of your needs first and then helping others.
Hello, everybody. I'm Robbie Spear-Miller, the host of the Hypnosis Show podcast. Today, our theme is going to be to talk about how being an empath can help you with the career of being a hypnotist, or really anything to do with people, and also how it can get in the way of relationships or taking care of yourself or helping other people get results. We have lots and lots of clients and students who have very strong empathic abilities. And sometimes it's exhausting because they get too caught up in other people's stuff, or it can make them lose sight of what needs to happen. But having this ability is also a huge benefit in terms of being able to read people and to connect with people and help them get what they came for. So we're going to be meeting with somebody who I've known for many years. She is a hypnotist and trainer with the Master Hypnotist Society. She owns 2 clinics in the Los Angeles area. So let's welcome Carmela Tunzi to talk to us about this today. Welcome, Carmela.
Hi, Robbie. Hi. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, this is great. And you are really a perfect person to talk about this. And it's funny because in a way, you and I are kind of opposite in that you've always been, an extreme empath and taken a lot of, it was a big part of how you are in the world and you are with people. And, my natural tendency is to go the other direction and be much more to the point. And so it's been interesting for me to watch you over the years grow into changing this. And I've also learned how to become, go more in the direction of, let's say, being open to my empathic skills, because I always have them, but I had really high boundaries about them. And for you had, and for me, it seemed kind of overly vulnerable to be empathic. I felt like I had to protect myself from it. And for you, it was like always your superpower, and you took a lot of pride in it. So I think it would be really interesting to explore this theme and kind of help people wrap their minds around how to develop this kind of flexibility.
Awesome, Robbie. Well, I must start with, like you, we've known each other for quite some time. And I don't think I ever had the opportunity to tell you this, but when I was kind of doing my reverse engineering for future pacing of who I'd like to model, you are one of the people that I chose. And quite frankly, because I saw your success and have been watching it. And so it's been, very powerful to take what's useful in our different teaching styles and apply it to ourselves and for others. But that being said, as far as the topic, when you first messaged me about, how being prideful of this, talent, skill, I don't think it's really a talent. I think it was something that was learned and emulated early on in my life. But I had to cringe a little bit. I have to tell you, because as I read the topic, we certainly know that being prideful of anything is not useful. We say in our practices, we're not, making the behavior negative or positive, but is it useful or unuseful? So being prideful of, having a skill of any kind of takes you back to self. And we are looking as trainers to help our students and our clients to see the world outside of being too internal. So, for example, we know many of the masters had this skill, Virginia Satir, Milton Erickson. We know that they went through kind of different types of suffering early on in their youth. But they learned this skill because they were kind of stuck in their situation. I think Virginia was in a foster home and learned how to read people based on what she was seeing in their communication style. And, then went on to study. And I don't want to go into her whole lifespan, but over time, this behavior of being compulsive other kind of took her out of taking care of herself too much. And so that's where, being too prideful of this behavior certainly isn't helpful to the practitioner, myself included, because you kind of get lost in the person or the people that you're working with. So I think our trainer, Scott McFall, would say, if you can't be inside of a bottle and read the label, right? So the whole purpose of being an empath or getting into rapport, actually, and it again is a learned skill, is to be able to go into the client's model of the world, the student's model of the world, and to be able to pull them out to a useful behavior. So you don't want to get inside, their model of the world and kind of get stuck in there, because then how can you lead them out? It's match, pace, and lead so that they are able to go into the behavior that they want, excuse me. And so I think that is a short way to describe it.
Right. So you're really good at the matching part, where you're really good at picking up on how people feel and what it might be like to be them. And you've learned how to get better at the pace, the leading part, where you're saying, okay, we see where you are now, and here's where we need to go next. Is that accurate?
Yes. That's a more useful way of doing it. The unuseful way would be to take on their behavior and kind of like not know and have their goal in mind. So it's kind of like the difference between empathy and sympathy. We don't want to just give sympathy. We don't even want to hear the story usually with our clients. We want to see, after hearing why they're there, what is their outcome? What is it that they actually want to go to? Sometimes it's hard for them to do this. So when we take on their attitudes, values, and beliefs and see the world as they do, then it becomes easier for us to see the world how they see it, and then to begin to create the roadmap of how it is that they can achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about how you came to be interested in hypnosis and discovering this, this empath ability that you have, and kind of in the context of there. I'm sure there were many ways that it's helped you in your past and the things you've done, and maybe some areas where it might have been challenging for you. So, share a little bit with us about your personal
Sure.
story that way.
Sure, definitely. I think, I really didn't think about this so much, maybe even before the interview, because quite frankly, we don't really dive into the past so much. But in reflecting, we learn certain behaviors from our caregivers, and this is what we know to be true. So, in my particular family dimension, it was very unusual for being an Italian, growing up with a nationality that is known to be very loud and communicating in that way. My particular caregivers, my parents, I love them dearly, but they never ever fought. So what I mean by never, I mean never a voice fought. So I really had no idea what was happening. Many times I would walk into a room and there was a certain energy that I could sense. Now, I didn't really, like I said, spend a lot of time thinking about this in the past. It just became a very familiar, almost like sixth sense. You become, aware that, there's a different, way of talking. They're not talking, and maybe there is, a posture. Certainly, Milton Erickson might have spent some time being the observer in this way also. Although he had extreme, illness, polio that prevented him from moving or interacting with people in certain ways. I didn't have any illnesses, but what I was aware of is that there was something different in the way that they were communicating. And so I think that's where my awareness of like the energy behind communication started to develop. And so then what happens, I think when you're early on, you start to look at like, well, is this my fault? Is this something that I did? And so then you want to become, the people pleaser. And so that's a whole other can of worms, right? That many empaths, I believe, take that on. They want to have the need to be able to help the others. In this case, it might have been my mother, and trying to satisfy the needs of the other at a selfless kind of position. And so then it becomes a habit. So there's an assumption that there's maybe something wrong in the way that you're communicating or doing. And so then all of a sudden the deep need to be, useful or helpful comes into play. And then, we're going into the martyr position, which definitely is not useful, right? So, and as I may fast forward, how this can be helpful with working with clients is, and Scott will, definitely has taught us a lot about this, is to be able to see the person. So you're not really hearing the story. You're watching their posture. You're watching their expression in their face, their breath rate. Then as you're watching them and you're really seeing them, you can imagine, and actually feeling them at this point because you're matching them, you can imagine what the world would be like being in their shoes, right? But you don't want to stay in that position. And you certainly don't want to do this with every single person that comes in your life because it's exhausting. And then guess what happens? You forget to take care of yourself. Which I definitely have fallen into. And so then what happens is this cycle of being, too tired to take care of your own needs. And then even worse, resentful of, maybe people that are in your life that, are used to this behavior. And by the way, they oftentimes don't ask you to do, too much for them. So the unuseful behavior is to want to give and please constantly and kind of step into their shoes and forget about taking care of your needs. And so you get, to a point where when your needs aren't being taken care of, then you can get resentful. So the behavior needs to be a little flexible. You need to take care of yourself. Like the metaphor of being on the plane, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And so that you can help the person in the seat next to you, and then go back and forth. So the real way to do this is to use it as a skill that you can turn on and off and have the boundary, the boundary setting of saying no. I actually just today listened to your wonderful interview with our colleague, Julie Nice, and how she was talking to her client and teaching her the boundary setting of saying no. And, in a gentle, nice way. But that really helps like to refuel, yourself. So to be aware, I guess, for anybody listening to this, any other practitioners or people in our fields, we're not therapists, and, I don't know how specifically they're being trained, but we certainly do not want to hold on to this and kind of lose ourselves in our practice. Because by the way, it hurts us financially. Because if we're too tired to keep, after our goals, we can't go through our own, checklist of things to do to take care of our business needs, our mental needs, our spiritual needs, our relationship needs. You get too tired. So I think that is a pros and cons kind of way of describing, and a little bit of my history.
Yeah. Okay, so where this came from for you was that it was the way you coped with what happened as a kid. You saw things happening in your family, and the way you coped with it was to feel like you needed to fix it or make people feel better, and that you needed to come into a room and read the room. and respond accordingly.
Yes.
So that your way of coping was you felt like if you didn't do that, that you might be abandoned or it was your fault. That was the little kid belief about this.
Thank you for saying that, and because you're reminding me of, yes, and it is a coping mechanism. I did try to rebel at one point, and take care of myself only, and the pendulum swung too far the other way. So as a practitioner, I found it like, useful to kind of like be selfless and, to really focus and hone in on the client's needs. But you really have to step outside of yourself and model yourself and see your behavior. Again, is it useful or unuseful? What is the perfect balance in this? And you said a key word there. It kind of discovers or unveils patterns that are so deep that you might not even be aware of. And the comment of abandonment, it wasn't even before working with Scott that I might have realized that, part of the reason that people that take on this skill and the empath is that deep need of connection. And when that connection is not there, it does feel kind of like a void. And so that would kind of touch upon the abandonment issue. But if you're taking care of self truly and you're filling all your needs, then that abandonment isn't there, because wherever you are, you're there. So there's not a need for someone else to fill that void for you, but yourself, and to have healthy, mature relationships, knowing when, to be with the people that you need to be with. And the other thing that might happen is, unfortunately, as far as talking about relationships, is being this way has a tendency to also attract people unconsciously that kind of see you from far away, and they see your light and they want to take it. They need that light. And so you find yourself at times, giving too much to people that are not able to give back to you. And that is unfortunate. And it is the cycle of an empath to have the tendency to attract people in their lives who don't know how to give you back. It's not a fault. It's just that they haven't learned the skills. They haven't, dealt with how to model that from their life experience. And so they have to be taught how to give, just like the empath has to be taught how to give, not so much.
Yeah. So if I look at this like from the point of view of my growing up, I what my way of coping was to say, to be a strong, successful person, that I needed to be more objective. So I grew up with this fear that I would get lost in emotion because I saw people around me getting lost in emotion. And so I looked at it as a really negative thing. And so that was, what I chose to value, or how I chose to cope with things, which really has nothing to do with the actual ability of being an empath. It was just that my way of coping was to put that boundary super high. And so it was just
Mm-hmm.
really the opposite way, that the same kinds of things might have happened, but it was an opposite way of interacting with it. Yeah.
Right.
So your
Definitely.
example of Yeah, your example of the pendulum swinging is important, because sometimes if we're in one direction, so let's say if somebody is really empathic and then they start taking care of themselves and setting boundaries, and something terrible happens because of it, they might retreat back to, oh well, I have to be an empath, and double down on that because they had that one experience that proved that it was, dangerous maybe to be selfish or to take care of yourself.
Yes. There is another topic that comes up with that. Even when you're learning how to take care of your needs, there's a gentle way that this should happen. In my experience, when I started to become aware of my own needs needing to be met, even before I started practicing hypnosis, I had a life experience where I was in the middle of a financial crisis, actually. And as I began to focus on my own need to kind of reframe how I was going to look at this and take action, people that were very used to me being that person always there actually dramatically cut me out of their life, because they found it to be so hurtful that all of a sudden I was not able to give what they were familiar with, what they were constant. And several people like just cut me out of their life. And that was very painful. In retrospect, I would have handled it a little bit differently instead of going extreme, the opposite. Because the person is not aware. They're not in your model of the world. They have no idea what is happening or know how to take on, what the empath is actually feeling. So it becomes like a very gentle thing that needs to happen back and forth, and to be just fully aware of all the components that are happening if you're already in the dynamics of relationship with certain people.
Right. So sometimes it shows you who your real friends are and who really cares about you, because if they care
Absolutely.
about you and you need to take
Absolutely.
care of yourself, they'll still care about you while you're taking care of yourself. But if they were just there to get stuff
Yes.
from you, whatever it was that they wanted from
Yes.
you, and you can't give it anymore, and then they leave, it shows
Yep.
you, if they were
Yep.
truly a friend or if they were just there as a taker.
Right.
Yeah. So one thing that I think
Absolutely.
a lot of empaths struggle with is there's a huge time delay or a life experience delay in discovering who their real friends are or the people who really care about them.
Mhm.
Because when we care about other
Mhm.
people, we're assuming they care about us too. And then your need to be
Yes.
needed, if that's being met, then you don't really go beyond that and say, hey, is there anything else really here? Or is this relationship all based
Right.
on me satisfying somebody else's needs?
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
and so from my
Yeah.
point of view, I would say like coming at this from my direction where I had to be, I guess, make peace or welcome my empathic abilities more or feel safe expressing them. I discovered that if I was more
Mhm.
open to people or more connected, that I could build better relationships with them. Right. So I was missing the
Mhm.
the initial connection and being in rapport piece. And but in terms of the boundary setting, that was okay. And you were the one who needed to say,
Mhm.
okay, now we're connected and in rapport. And hey, what happens when I do set a boundary? And to see if this
In
person really
fact,
is meant to be
yes.
there.
Yes. In fact, I think I recall that I called you once, to teach me how you do it. Um, and no joke, like for people that haven't learned how to set boundaries well, they really don't know how to do it. And it feels so foreign, and you're, so concerned with others getting their feelings hurt or not responding the way you'd like them to do, or worse, stop talking to you, or all of these silly things where as you become more skilled with doing this, it's just a skill. You just turn it on and off, and kind of have, like, even with your clients, maybe not personal relationships, but having a ritual of being able to be with the person and then going into you, not lose yourself in that behavior. What came to mind also when I was thinking about this conversation was there's several actors that do this emulation, and I don't know if I would call it empath so much, but they literally step into the shoes of the characters they're going into. And when they're actually outside of it, I've heard them comment. Jim Carrey's one, and I'm thinking of Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp once said he doesn't even know who he is. And so that is a thing that we as empath will go through. Like, we have to be reminded of taking care of ourselves, what is good for us, what is a useful behavior for us taking care of ourselves. And so it really takes modeling self and kind of looking, like I mentioned earlier, outside of the bottle and reading the label so that you know who you are. Boundaries are important.
So, right. So extreme empaths, they're in danger of getting kidnapped into somebody else's life. And it happens so fast, they don't
Yes,
even know what happened. They don't know how to escape.
yes, yes. How'd I get here?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, great. So talk a little bit about, like, give us some specific examples of how things are better for you now that you do know how to set these boundaries. So it could be with working with your clients or students, or maybe in your personal relationships. But I would love to hear, we have a lot of students
Sure.
who are empaths and who struggle with this. So I think it's great for them to hear real life examples of how things have improved.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that has changed for me, in even during the pandemic, there was still the want of the compulsion of giving, giving, giving. So what I learned there was, well, I have an opportunity now to actually grow my practice because I'm taking care of my financial needs as I'm taking care of others. So I saw opportunities of business growth. If I wasn't really looking at my needs, financial needs that start there, then I wouldn't see the opportunity of growing my practice. That's where the second clinic came into play. The other thing that has recently brought me back to focus is actually losing weight. I'm, currently releasing weight. I just lost 4 pounds, and so that's a small victory for me. I'm going to keep going. But if I'm just hyper focused on the needs of my clients, I'm literally answered a text message while I'm in interview with you. That's how we do that. So setting a boundary of, no, this is my time to take care of my needs. I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm going to, or I cut off, a certain time that I can just watch mindless, Netflix is important, because I will get text messages up to 11 o'clock at night. And, the need to want to respond is still there. So I have to be real clear and definitive at what's useful and not useful. Those are like small examples. How can I take care of, how can I model someone that is in a weight loss program if I'm not having the behaviors myself, right? So, and how is that helpful? Is I'm not getting depleted. I'm feeling more confident about myself. I can, be the example. If I'm just in it with them, we're both suffering together. How's that useful? So I hope that answers it, like more specifically, like how people can use this for themselves. Just be balanced,
Mhm.
take care of, be the person that you want your clients to be. I said this to my students yesterday. I said, I want you to be aware of your behavior and know that, kind of like magic, who you are kind of shows up. So if you're, functioning in a certain way that's useful, cool, you get to teach that to your client. If you're functioning in a way that's unuseful, how are you going to model that for your client so that they know that they can change? So we have to start with ourselves in that respect.
I think one of the really powerful things about what we do is that people are involved in a group experience where they're meeting people who have different tendencies. And so we have this group culture where you can actually model people in different directions. Like, for example, I learned a lot from modeling the people like you who are empaths, and you learn a lot from modeling people like me who are better at setting boundaries. And so if you're in my real life, if I wasn't in this group with you, it's unlikely that you and I would really get to know each other because we're not really dovetailing each other's needs properly. Right? Like you wouldn't really be able to be an empath to me the way you would want to. So you wouldn't be attracted to hanging out with me. And I would probably be going, oh, she just gets wrapped up in all the drama. Right? And I wouldn't be attracted to spending time with you. And so because we're in this group experience, we actually get to know each other in ways we wouldn't in real life, because you and I, we wouldn't really normally be like a match that way, right? We wouldn't have the yin and yang, that experience with each other. And so it really helps to have that opportunity to meet people and get to know people who are really different from you.
It's rewarding in that, like you mentioned, we would, first of all, be with people that we normally wouldn't be with, as far as communication and learning, and also very valuable, you know, this self judgment. Is it useful or unuseful? So when we hear stories of others that are having the same sort of experiences, it makes you feel like you're not alone in the parts that still you need to learn. So there's room to stretch and grow. And there's also, people years ahead of you, such as yourself and a couple of the other master trainers, that it kind of, to me, is inspirational to see your achievements, well beyond the years that I've been in the group. So being in the group is very rewarding. And I don't know that I would have a membership core need, but certainly see the value of connecting. And I feel like I've grown a lot since being in the trainers group versus when I was just under mentorship by myself. So it's so useful, and it's been so powerful and great experience. And sometimes we even form little friendships, and within that, mostly professional dynamics. And yeah, it's become a very powerful part of my life. I wouldn't want to not ever be in the Master Hypnotist Society trainer group, for sure. In order to really help people, you have to be able to know what they need. And they don't need someone just living through their sympathy. In order to really help them with the empathy, sure, you want to be able to connect and feel, but you want to be able to take them out of themselves and practice this skill by taking care of your needs first and then helping others.
Mm-hmm. Scott McFall expressed this really well the other day, where he said, you don't want to feel good because you're helping people. You want to feel good that you're watching people be successful at getting results. Because sometimes if you're an empath and you want to feel good, we all feel good when we help people. That's true, right? And that's a good thing. But to be able to take it as far as they need to get the actual results, because sometimes we feel a sense of accomplishment too soon in terms of, let's say a client's coming for weight loss and they say, oh, I feel so much better. I'm so much more relaxed and my relationships are so much better. I don't even care if I lose the weight. Well, no, they came for weight loss, so we need to make sure they're also getting the weight loss results. But if we tend to feel good too soon about helping people, that kind of comment might trick us into feeling good about what happened there, and losing sight of the actual client outcome. So I think that that's an important way of looking at things, that we want to see the actual results and to make sure our focus is staying there. So one of the things that we all need to be good at is to be careful about getting compliments from clients or students, because if we take that compliment in and we think, oh, wow, we did our job, then we're not actually holding them accountable to follow through. And some students actually use giving compliments as a tool to get the pressure off of them. They figure if they compliment the instructor, then they don't have to follow through. Not on purpose. Often this is subconscious. But to not fall for that, and to make sure you're keeping sight of where the client needs to go or the student needs to go, I think is a really important thing.
Yes,
that we all need to
Robbie,
be aware of.
and I've heard Scott say, yes, and I've heard Scott say many times, believe the action, not the words. Not the words, but are they losing weight? Are they taking action, listening to their hypnosis? Believe the action, watch them, see them, not the words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it actually reminds me of a student I had a number of years ago, and she was a really great person at audiencing people. So she loved just like enjoying people and celebrating whatever they were good at and making them feel good. She was so good at it. So good at it that she could keep the attention off herself, so she could get away with anything as long as she was audiencing people. And when I wouldn't allow her to do this, she said to me things like, Robbie, are we breaking up? Because she thought I didn't like her. When really it was just refocused and making sure she actually did what she needed to do, right? Because all she wanted to do was learn more about me and have me talk about me, and I kept turning it back to her. And nobody had ever done that for her before. And I remember her saying how she had in the past been to see therapists, and she was so good at this that she would actually do this with the therapist, and they would feel like good spending time with her, and they felt like she was fine. She didn't need any help. But the only reason they thought that is because she was so good at audiencing them, and they felt good around her. So she managed to play that magic trick on people, and she knew she was playing that trick. So I think
Right.
that example is really interesting. She was aware. Other people might be so good at this, they're not aware that they're doing it, but it can be a way to take the pressure off yourself, because it always feels better to cheer somebody else on or appreciate them or help them with something they need help with than it does to pay attention to ourselves and what we need to do. And so I think that's an important theme to look for in clients and students, because many, many people are really good at this.
Yes, and transference, that issue of transference. Are they coming to your office because they just want to connect and feel good? Are they seeing you through, the eyes of what they project as a parent or a sibling? Why are they there? And to interrupt that, sometimes it might feel, especially as an empath, a little. You're being a little stern, but the tough love is what needs to happen. So, with rapport, you can lead people just about anywhere, and explaining why that behavior isn't correct. I've had instances of people, wanting to come and share their unuseful behaviors, and I interrupt the pattern, and remind them that we're not here to vent. We're here to see if this pattern is useful or unuseful. And I don't want to be the parent. I'm the hypnotist. I'm not your mother. Although we say you want, to care for your clients in a benevolent way. But you certainly want to be a hypnotist first and be able to interrupt the patterns lovingly and take them in the direction of where they need to go.
Which is what a parent would want to do too. Right? Like if
Yes.
you're parenting in a really, if you're as a parent keeping your eye on what the child needs, then that tough love would be part of being a parent as well. That we really are looking at where
A
does
good
this
parent.
person need to grow to be happy and successful and do what they need to do, whether it's a
Right.
parent or as a hypnotist or whatever. Yeah. So for those
Yeah.
people who, when they're first learning hypnosis, sometimes we have students who are really uncomfortable with getting people into the pain of the problem because they feel, oh no, they're not going to like me or I'm going to offend them. And so it's really keeping clear about you really want to look at it like if your child was running in front of a moving car, you would go and grab them out of the way and you wouldn't try to be polite about it or worry about how they feel. Now, of course, we do want to be as
Exactly.
loving and diplomatic as possible as we do this, but we need to really realize that we need to help people level and lay things on the table in a useful way. Otherwise, they're not going to change. And if somebody's running in front of a moving car, but it's in slow motion, it's still important that we go grab them and make sure they get out of their way. And often when people come to see us for help, that is what's happening.
100%. Yes. Be careful of the car. No, get out of the way.
Right. Look both ways before you cross the street. Yeah. And so, sometimes people need to touch the hot stove to know that they shouldn't touch a hot stove. But sometimes the lesson of the real life lesson can be too harsh if we let people actually go there, right? Like running in front of a moving car. So how do we create an experience for people to help them shift and change in ways that will help keep them safe and achieving and succeeding? Is really what we're going for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Great. So tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Sure, absolutely. My website is mindflowhypnosis.com. That's the main one, or ShermanOaksHypnosis.com. And they can call me at any time or text me at 323-573-7707.
Great. And if anybody wants to find out more about how hypnosis training can help you, you can go to our website, hypnosistrainingcanada.com. We have a bunch of free goodies that you can download there to help you learn more. And if you're ready to move forward with training, we can set up a time for a free consultation to see if this is a good fit for you. So you can do that at the website, hypnosistrainingcanada.com, or you can call 800-971-5774. We do a free 30 to 40 minute consultation to see what you're looking for and what you need, and to see if this is a good fit for you. So thanks, Carmela. It was great to chat and really
Awesome, Robbie.
interesting to hear about your take on all of this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for being
me.
here,
And I
and
learned a
hope
lot.
it inspires all. Yeah, and as you, and I hope this inspires people who are either overly empathic or more in my direction, where they've been developed really high boundaries about being an empath, to start engaging in that flexibility and to let that pendulum swing in a place that's more balanced. And there's never perfect balance, but to have it in a place that is more useful for them, where they have more choice. So that's my hope with people listening to this podcast. Great. So good to see you, Carmela. I'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you later.
Thank you,
Bye.
Robbie. Lots of fun. Okay. Bye.
When people give too much or do too much, it can often lead to stress, resentment, relationship problems, and burnout. Next week's podcast will open your eyes to how to get your needs better met and at the same time experience less stress and improve your relationships. And if you're wanting to discover more about how hypnosis training can help you, go to hypnosistrainingcanada.com and schedule your free consultation. Remember to click the button to subscribe, share this podcast with a friend, and please leave us a review so you can help others benefit from the podcast too. Until next week.
You've been listening to The Hypnosis Show with Robbie Spear-Miller. Tune in next time to learn more about how you can change your life with hypnosis. And if you are interested in learning more about training opportunities, go to hypnosistrainingcanada.com and schedule a free consultation.